Hello there, Outliers, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your journey. My name is Niiamah Ashong, and welcome to the Outliers Edge podcast, where we focus on bringing in extraordinary leaders to help them share how they see the world and also how they can help expand your world. Today, we're actually in for an incredible treat because we found one of the leaders who had been on an earlier Outliers Edge roundtable conversation. And there was just so much greatness that was taking place in this conversation that we wanted to slow things down and bring it to you here in this one-on-one context. So today, we get to spend time with Magna Gopal. Magna, thank you so much for making the time once again to be here. And thank you for showing up with like so much integrity and living it out loud in such a clear way that it made sense for us to just say, let's continue down this conversation. It's great to be back in conversation with you.
Glad to be here, Niiamah.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah, I'm glad.
pleasure.
Let's so Outliers, if you haven't gotten a chance, go make sure we go back and watch the panel conversation. But for anyone that's coming in here, why don't you refresh us on on who you are, how you show up in the world, and the game that you're playing?
Sure, thank you. I am an empowerment coach, a public speaker, and a dance professional in the salsa dance industry for almost 25 years. That has translated into public speaking and empowerment coaching because of all of the experience I've gotten connecting with people from a variety of backgrounds, a variety of learning styles, like language comprehension, and getting to understand and observe people and how they connect with each other without verbal skills, or not verbal skills rather, but without using the verbal language and actually non-verbally connecting with each other and how they create with each other. And the beauty of the dance community and what I've learned from it that I'm bringing to coaching and speaking is this nature of understanding each other, understanding ourselves so that we can bring our best to every single moment so that we can not only get out the most from each moment, but also bring out the most out of the other person as well.
So let's jump off from this place here, right? Because you've had a storied career in dance, and you're out here really empowering and working with different leaders in organizations and beyond. Take me now to the question that comes to my mind right now is like that transition, right? Like I get you as a powerful person, and I'm also really curious about like what brought that power within you to say, I've been doing this in the dance world, and now I'm going to expand that into like where I really feel that leaders can get the most impact from my presence. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The dance community, what it had shown me was the diversity of people and the backgrounds from which they came. So there's no universally universal category of income, of education, of employment, of religion, of race, of any of those things. And so everything that I learned within dance, I'm realizing that it's not limited to any certain type of people. So if dancers of all different backgrounds can benefit, then why can't people of all different backgrounds in different areas and different careers also equally benefit? So that was the motivation. That was the start of saying, what are the lessons that I can take from dance that can apply to other areas of life that can improve and empower us to show up with integrity, to show up with excellence in other areas.
So I know you to be an empowerment coach, and you just use like can improve and empower right now. So I want to just like get on the same page with you as to like what empowerment means for you and why you feel like it's really important. Because I get the sense that you could have created yourself in any given way, but you're like, this is where I really shine. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because it took me some time to say, well, what kind of coaching? Like, technically, it's life coaching, it's coaching people through life, it's leadership coaching, it's public speaking coaching. But when I boiled it all down, it really came, the best term was empowerment. And what empowerment means to me is, if we spell it a little different, empower is I'm power. right? It's a weird way to put it
No,
together.
I'm following you. So sometimes I don't respond because I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So yeah, I see it.
Right. So the way I look at empowerment is that it's my power. And there are so many areas in our life where we don't feel like we have power, or not that we don't feel like it, but we can't even see it. We don't even realize that there's power to be had. And when it comes to relationships with other people or communications with other people, especially when there's a hierarchy of relationships, it's even more apparent that people don't feel like they have power. And the way I look at those relationships, or literally any relationship, is that influence is always a two-way street. It doesn't matter what experience, what money, what resources somebody has beyond yours, you still have influence in that interaction. And the empowerment aspect of it is to understand your own influence and to exercise your own influence to get the outcome that ideally is mutually beneficial to both.
Can you do me a favor here? Can you bridge how influence and power connect? I have something in my mind that I'll put in, but I'm really curious about how you look at it.
Sure. Power and influence, there's a power, I would say, is what we feel about ourselves. But power, as it relates to influence, is what we can do with that power to affect others. And so, what I feel first, the step is always internal. Do I feel my power? Am I aware of my power? Do I understand what I am capable of? And if I'm not capable, do I understand what I'm capable of learning to become more capable? That's my power. Then to understand how that relates to any interaction with anybody in any situation, in any environment, to then bring that power to a matter of influence and say, what do I bring to the table, to this particular interaction? What do I want to achieve from this particular interaction? What is my power in this moment? What power can I develop? What power do I already have? And that would be my relationship, or my interpretation of power and influence as it relates to our connections with other people.
Awesome, awesome. I'm thinking about this here as a leader of an organization myself, just thinking about like a couple things. The first thing that comes to my mind realistically is like what I'll call like the double-edged sword or outliers edge. So I think about edges a lot, you know? And one part of me, like you talked about like not knowing about the power that you have and the influence that comes from it. Um, and I could see that being one thing where it's like, okay, great. Like you have the power, go do it. Yes. And the other side of it being like, I'm a leader in an organization and like I'm not recognizing that I have this power and I'm not actually wielding it in a way that is like um beneficial to the people that I lead or perhaps even harming them without like actually having that at its intent. So I'll be curious from you, like from your experience here, how have you seen like as you've been empowering, how have you seen the empowerment continue to support people on both ends? Let's take one at a time. First, we'll start off with like those who are looking to do good that are like, hey, like own what you have, and I'll use that to influence to create better results for you, your team, and your organization. And then we'll go on to the second side of things where of it all.
Sure. So as it pertains to leaders, there there's a challenge, I think, with many of us as we progress through life from one position to another, from a certain level of experience to more experience, to a certain level of authority to greater authority, is a lack of reflection. Like we might get acknowledged, we might be rewarded, we might be promoted to get to another position. And when we get there, we say, I've been doing a good job. So naturally, this is the natural outcome of all of my hard work. But what was that hard work? What did I do successfully? What was I able to learn? How did I apply myself to the challenges and obstacles that I encountered? How did I manage and navigate conflict? And that reflection is necessary at all stages of our life. And I don't think we do it enough. And I feel like that limits the power that we feel we have in different situations. Because I also feel like when we get into leadership positions and higher positions of authority, that we sometimes feel that imposter syndrome. What am I doing here? How did I get here? Who made that decision? And do they know how wrong they are? And those are those moments where we need to be able to reflect and say, I got here because of this, because of how I got through that. I used those skills. I developed these skills, and I can perform in this position just as well as I have in the past. Because though this is new, the process of meeting a challenge, meeting an obstacle, and conquering it, I have done before and I have done many times. And I can share that with other people to lead them so that they feel equally empowered to do the same.
Yeah, I'm being called in for a story right here because I feel like with what you're saying, like I get it, and I also feel like you've been successful in so many different ways. Would you mind making this real and sharing an example of how this applied to you in your past, or maybe even in your present?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was my first time leading a team. I really never had any experience leading a team. Everything I did in my dance career was a solopreneur. I didn't have anyone to manage but myself. I took care of all my contracts. I took care of all of the negotiations. I arranged my own travel. I did not have to organize the event. I just had to show up and deliver. So when I first had to lead a team, all of a sudden it was a matter of saying, oh, there are these deliverables that sure I could do on my own because I can learn everything and make it work. But I have other people in these positions that I should be leveraging their skills. But I don't think they know what their skills are. And if they do, they're not motivated to take the action to support the team, to support that mutual goal, those mutual benefits that we will all achieve. And the process there was understanding, because I was coming from dance and into a completely different environment, more of a corporate environment, was understanding this is a different type of relationship management, but I've managed relationships with people of all different backgrounds, of all different understandings. I can bring that here. And that was an aspect of saying, okay, who are the people in front of me? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are their motivations? What are their spoken motivations? And what are their hidden motivations? And how can I better cater to that to get the outcomes that I want, as well as achieve the goals that will benefit all of us?
So we're going to do a little thing here. Allies, I'm going to talk to you. Firstly, um, like Magna is delivering some incredible questions to consider. Right. So just like take through that. Like as you even with just this set of questions you put out here, Magna, I could see the thought process. I can see the intentionality behind it. Right. So one, I want to capture that like outliers. If you're like I'm not sure how to implement this, like you have a roadmap with just these questions to even just get you started down the path and like powerful reflection using your word from earlier this conversation, like slowing down and being able to reflect. So I'm seeing that. One, I really want to acknowledge you and the intentionality there, and thank you for bringing that to Outliers. Two, I'm seeing how you also bridge your past experiences to what comes next, right? You're not like, oh, I don't know how to lead. You're like, I know I've done this before in a different context, but I've done this before. And what worked there? People are people. How do I continue to leverage and move and galvanize people toward a common goal? So I'm curious if there's anything you want to like share or like talk to about that. It's like I can see how you don't let any one moment of your life go to waste.
Yeah, there's also that element, like I was saying before, about reflection, is the greater our successes, the less we reflect on our biases, because we think that we must be right in our way of thinking because we got here. So why would I fix anything? Why would I check anything? And checking our biases is absolutely crucial to overcoming many barriers, especially barriers between people, those connection barriers. And that would be another aspect of that leadership of a team, especially, is to say all the things that I like. There are a few characteristics. There's attributes of these folks that I like, that I think I can utilize to get this mutual goal achieved. But there are many things that I don't like. And Why don't I like them? It's always easy for us to say, you got a problem with the way you communicate. But how about myself? Why do I have a problem with the way you communicate? Is a question I feel like we don't really ask. Why do I have a problem with the way you communicate? What are my biases? What is my experience? What's my childhood experience? That makes me feel offended or disrespected based on the way things are happening right now. And how can I check those so that we can make some progress here?
It's interesting because like yeah, I have a background in coaching and it's really like refreshing to hear the way you ask questions in this space because I can feel how in answering each of those questions, the individual who takes the time to do this, outliers, I'm talking to you, like actually gains more power in it. Because what I heard you say with that last example was, hey, the first thing was that person's communication is off. And our ability to to change another person is far limited in comparison to our ability to change ourselves. And so like I felt you in that place saying like, what is it about me that is making me feel this way? And like in that place, I have the power to change something there. What pops off for you?
I wanted to add to this. There's also this notion, I think, a misconception that adapting is catering and
Mm.
therefore tolerating and enabling something that isn't good. When in reality, I feel like adapting and learning the skills to work with anybody and in any environment is actually developing you and increasing your power, empowering you further to have greater influence. And I'll give one small example from the dance community. There's a lead and there's a follow. And the dance is typically for decades been structured with a leader who dictates the dance and the follower who follows. Many followers have had the complaint that I feel like I have to adapt to the lead. The lead should be adapting to me. Why should I cater to a leader who is rough, who's too strong? And my approach to it has always been I don't look at that moment with someone who is rough or something I don't like as you should be catering to me because you're leading the dance. I look at it as how can I adapt myself and develop my skills so that all the things I don't like about this interaction do not impact the outcome of this dance for me, which is enjoyment, fun, creativity. And that's why I developed myself. I reflected upon myself. What skills am I lacking? So in dance, how good is my balance? Where's my equilibrium? How much do I understand tension and momentum? Because once I learned all those things, developed myself, the way other people would say, oh, you're catering to someone who's rough. Once I learned those things, there's not a single dancer, it doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are, how poor you are technically, that can throw me off. And it's the same thing when it comes to interactions with people. You meet somebody who's rough, who's abrasive, who's aggressive, who feels very confrontational, and you say, you know what, they need to fix their style. But when you learn how to navigate that, you understand, okay, this person uses a lot of volume. Maybe I am a soft speaker, and maybe I need to learn how to increase my volume to get their attention. Hey, that's not how I have to speak all the time, but for that moment, for that interaction, maybe that is a technique I need to employ to get the connection, to get the attention, to get the respect, and then move the conversation in the direction that I want.
Firstly, I'm glad you brought in the dance because, like, as you were talking, I'm like, I feel like you've had so much experience with this, while, like in that. So I'm really glad you brought that in. As you were saying it, I could feel it. I could feel the that. What did I feel? I felt that element of self-power coming in, right? Without having to like be in the victimized position where it's like, oh, this person is doing it to me. Like, what I hear from you is like there's two parts. I think that where the power came from was like the growth. It was like, oh, this person is now giving me an opportunity to find out a place where like wherever level I am currently at is not at the level to also be able to still look good, have fun, have joy, whatever it is to play the game I want to play with this. I can play it in certain conditions, and then I like I'm here, you're like saying like, yeah, if those conditions don't happen, how do you continue to play your game?
Right, absolutely. And that's the idea is many of the skills we develop them for the box that we learn them in.
Mm.
We stay in that box. And as soon as we're confronted with something that's outside of that box, we're feeling uncomfortable and judgmental that this is not right. But that box could be this city, and if you go to another country, it's another box. Like if you really want to be an expert, a master at anything, you've got to first of all define your box, and that also identifies the biases that you might have, the limitations that you might have. Understand how much more is out there. Reflect on yourself, on your strengths as well as your weaknesses. Extend those strengths, transfer those strengths when you open that door and step outside of that box, and acknowledge those weaknesses and develop them through the process, and never look at the new, the foreign, as something that is something to be feared, but rather something that brings joy because there's a curiosity attached to learning something new. And if we go back to our childhood, anything that's new, when we bring curiosity to the table, it is pure joy. It's very rarely that we approach it with fear. And if we could keep that curiosity throughout our life, the challenges are fun. They're not to be avoided, they are to be embraced.
Fun challenges. Outliers, you hear that? Like, I love this year. Like, because I often say, like, I can't get rid of anyone's problems, but I can offer you better problems, right? And I feel like I haven't really thought about I can offer you more fun problems, but that's what I think of in my head. I'm like, it's more fun for me to have to figure out how do I deal with a calendar that's too full than have to figure out like, well, what am I going to do? There's no one that wants to talk to me. Like, both problems, just one is just more fun. And like, as you're talking, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, Outliers, like how much fun would it be to have yourself be able to grow into any kind of leadership moment because you take it upon yourself to continue to grow in the skill, to grow the skills, to learn what was there. How much fun would it be to have a team that like took this on themselves to work amongst each other to basically adapt to each other and use that as an opportunity to grow. Like, so you have a growing, self-growing team that's constantly looking for the more fun challenge, both amongst the way the team operates with itself, but with also with you and with other like other parts of the organization. Like, I'm thinking about like this one element here and how that truly empowers them, and what happens when you have that kind of an empowered and powerful team. It's something that like as I'm running through it, I'm like, this feels like a challenge worth like solving for, like worth pursuing. So I really appreciate you bring this out to the forefront, Magna. I haven't thought about this like this in a while. I'm getting juiced.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it does make a difference when we are approaching the challenges as something that we embrace, that we look forward to, that we expect that there will be a challenge. And the greater our experience, the more we should expect those challenges. And if we are not receiving or encountering any challenges, then we find the challenge by reflection, through reflection, revisiting the things that we've done in the past to say, this is what I understood. This is what I learned when I learned it first time around. This is what I understood. How do I understand it now? What are the new information? What's the new information that I have that I've gained through my experience that I can apply to that and then say, new understanding. Now I can provide that to people, especially when it comes to trainings.
Yeah, you're really good. If you don't mind me putting it out, like I feel like you get the meta part of how do you learn and how do you apply your learning. You're really good at apply learning. I get that you're also good at like with the questions you ask and such, helping other people like be able to extract the learnings that they had in one environment and then naturally just apply it over into this. As we're talking, I remember us right before we hit record, I was talking to you about my schedule and being like, oh, I have a lot going on here. And you shared about an experience that you had in another part of your life where you learned how to like end a conversation with enough space to then get you ready and prepared for whatever the next conversation was. And in my mind, I don't know if I said it out loud at the time, but I'm like, oh, I just don't have the skill yet to do it. Right. It's like it is possible, but there's a skill set that's involved. And I think about the leaders who have teams that are like, why is everyone showing up late to meetings, or why does every meeting go longer? It's like, oh, that's a challenge that can be a skill that is developed by individuals or multiple like or a team overall as it goes on. So I'm seeing what you're saying, and it all like what's interesting to me. I have a background in learning and development. For me, this becomes less like something that someone has to do, and instead like becomes like an opportunity for like actual growth. And maybe that's because growth is like the most fun thing for me, like out there. But I'm like, why am I doing this? Like I can get paid anywhere, but if I'm not growing, what's the point of me being here? You know? And so like you're really you're calling up a lot for me.
Well, if I could add to what you're saying right there, there's two parts. One is the presence and growth. And there's a misconception that presence equals growth to a very tiny degree, but presence is not enough. Growth requires active presence. You need to be wanting something to get that something. Because let's say, for example, I wanted to learn something, or I wanted to learn something from a speaker, and I show up at the speaker's workshop, and I don't have a notepad, I don't have anything to reflect with, I'm not asking any questions. Occasionally I'm getting distracted by my phone, maybe I'm engaging in a side conversation with the person next to me. Am I actually going to get everything I can? Now I can leave that workshop and say, oh, I attended, let's say, Tony Robbins. I attended Tony Robinson's seminar. Like, did I? Like, I was present, but was I really learning in that moment, or was I just there? Was I just another body in a seat? And there's that aspect of it, that growth requires an action, and you have to be aware of what action is required in which moment with whom.
As you're saying this, I know we're talking about Tony Robbins or potentially like the thing that's getting me is I'm thinking about the number of people, myself included, back in the day with that were just in meetings that like was like this meet why I'm here. I quote unquote attended. My name's on the agenda. It's on the notes afterwards and such. But like I was passive in the experience. Did I prepare for the conversation? Did I find a way to up level the conversation, or was I just physically present? And I like what I like. I'm really glad we're having this conversation because I asked you the question at the very beginning, what does empowerment really mean, or what does it mean to you? Because as we're discussing here, I'm seeing ownership. I'm seeing the ability to create your career, to lead your teams, to lead your organization in a way where you can show up as owner and continue to like build and grow and to not have to like settle at all for anything around you that's not working. Not by changing it, but by changing you so that you have more capacity and like and more dexterity, flexibility, adaptability, so on and so forth. Like the tools in your toolkit, Magnet, I think about and I'm like, oh, you can probably toss Magnet anywhere and she'll dance in the moment.
Yeah, and that's the part I would say that ties back to what you were saying before about the question. All right, let's talk about leaders, but now let's talk about the people that are receiving that leadership and how do you empower yourself. One of the easiest ways is to ask questions. One, as you just said, prepare for whatever moment you're going into, because again, you could be physically present and get absolutely nothing from it. And now you've wasted an hour or a day. You could have been doing something else. So if you're choosing something, if you are making that commitment to be there, then be there and try and get the most out of it. No one can give you that. Information is available in this world in abundance. I mean, we could not, even if we spent every second of every day listening to videos and podcasts at 2x speed, we would not be able to consume all of the information out there. So information is available, but how are we actually taking the time and investing in getting that information? So preparation first, make sure that you are as best prepared as possible. Two, take notes, reflect. Three, wherever you can, ask questions, because asking questions personalizes that experience for you. And it also assists other people that are present because maybe they're nervous, maybe they're shy, maybe they had the same question, but they just don't feel like asking and don't feel like standing out in the crowd. You asking that question might help somebody else also discover an answer that they needed. But asking question personalizes the experience, and then post experience, reflect and journal, write your thoughts down. The Feynman technique of learning, which is, can you explain whatever you learned to someone else? Can you teach what you just learned to someone else? And if you can't, you need to go revisit it. But most people, again, think that I was there. Maybe I even took some notes. I have the book, I have the workbook, I have the brochure and all of these things. I have a recording. So that means I have that experience. No, you don't. You don't get it through osmosis. You don't get it through being present, just physically present. You get it through being active. And those are a couple of steps that we can take. Preparation, active engagement by taking some notes during whatever you're in, whatever environment you're in, asking questions if you have any confusion or for more depth or more clarity, and then post engagement reflection, taking further notes, journaling, and seeing if you can explain it to somebody else.
So, Magna, what you just did here is something interesting because I say Outliers ends up being a playground. I used to call it just a sandbox, but I realized, oh no, the sandbox is part of the playground. There's lots of different things. We're talking, we've been talking here about going from a workshop, or maybe being in a meeting. And as you were talking right now, and I was hearing your steps from preparation to like actively being involved and then asking questions and then reflecting afterwards, I realized this moment right here is an opportunity to put that to action. So, Outliers, my invitation for you right now, if you're planning on passively consuming this, I'm going to invite you to actively create, to step in right now and go back and listen to this. Take notes. What do you have? What questions do you have? Maybe you can ask Magna directly. You can reach out to her. Magna, make sure that people know how they can reach out to you here. You can reach out to her. You can follow her in different places. You can bring her into your organization. Ask questions, right? And even without those questions, I think that like I have found that when I'm asking better questions, I start to get better answers. And yeah, go ahead, Magna.
Yeah, even that better questions, better answers is also a part of that you problem versus my power.
Mm.
It's when we ask certain questions and somebody gives us an answer and say that didn't make sense. Are you reflecting and saying, well, did I ask the right question? Did I ask the question in the best way? Could I reframe my question? Or are we just saying, I took my time to ask the question, therefore my job is done. The result was not what I expected, or not what I desired, or not satisfactory. And therefore that is your fault. And now our engagement is soured and the outcome will not be achieved. The goal will not be achieved. That's not the way to approach anything. And it goes back to the challenge, the fun challenge of saying, I didn't get what I wanted. Why not? Let me not focus on the things that I can't control, which is the other person. Let me focus on myself. What can I bring to the table that will improve the possibility, the chances of me getting the outcome that I desire, which is either getting action from somebody, taking action, changing the way that they're communicating with me, or possibly getting an outcome, getting an answer that makes sense to me, clarity.
All right. So like you had me like my whole facial thing came in because you took me to a moment here. So there's two things. I remember the moment. I'm gonna share a quick story on that. But I want to call in something that is it's a hidden prerequisite in what you're saying, but it also like one of the unlocked things, which is to know what it is that you want. Like I'm hearing deep intentionality come from you. You're like, and like, I think my experience is there's a number of people who don't really know what it is that they want. They show up at the meeting, they show up at the workshop, they go to the thing, and there's like, well, whatever happens, happens, or it's not mine to lead or whatever it is. And they just kind of take it as it comes to them. But what I'm hearing from you is like, you're intentional. Like I want to get something from this. Maybe I don't know exactly what I'm getting from it, but if I leave here and I haven't gotten something, I want to ask a question. I'm going to reflect back on why didn't I? What could I have done to prepare like different? What could I have done? Like I see that like that stage here, and I want to make sure I'm putting it out here, outliers. Like where in your world right now are you showing up without being intentional? And what would change if let's see this. I'm going to ask you to come back and tell me what did change after you spent the rest of today being intentional, being in a place of practicing what it is that you want. And I put this out there because I actually do find it to be a challenge. A lot of us don't know what we want. We're just used to like we're in the flow. You know, we got a promotion because we happen to be there, or like we've been at this company for a long time, or we wanted that promotion, but like now we're there and just in it. And I think that I hear underneath some of this here an invitation for us to like reclaim that, I think reclaim, but build the muscle of asking for and knowing what it is that you want, and then like not being satisfied at settling for less than that, even, but like also not leaving it to the other person to have to deliver on it. So I'm going to call that in because that was like playing out for me.
Yeah, intention is everything. There are so many things that we go through in life without intention. We go through automatic responses to things. Maybe somebody else has told us this is what you're supposed to be doing, and so we go and do it. I'm going to relate it back to dance, even. What is the purpose of learning the music, learning the timing, learning the technique for different things? Most people go in there and spend years learning all of these details to execute on the details without the intention of connection, first and foremost. And my approach, dance, I did not learn it. I wasn't formally trained. I learned on the fly. You talked about playground earlier. The dance floor and literally any space that I'm in is my classroom and my playground. I learn in the same space that I play, and I play in the same space that I learn. That is life for me. And so for people that are spending all this time to learn the techniques, but they're not aware that the intention is to connect with another person, they're missing out. And in fact, they are slowing their growth. They're slowing their progress, because when you focus on the connection, you end up automatically training your brain and your body to find the things that will help you connect. Because sometimes the technical aspect of it is not going to get you the connection that you desire. You need to abandon that. And again, goes back to the box. You might be in the box, you might be learning all of these things, but what you're trying to do is explore the world. Well, I'm sorry, but all of the things within that box are not what are going to help you explore the world. You might need to build a plane to get out, but you don't need that plane for your little town. Right? So you have to be able to really establish what it is that you want from any interaction, any moment, any pursuit. And more importantly, accept that that can change. Because sometimes we're scared to set an intention, set a goal, because we think that, oh, I don't want to commit. Now, what if I want something else? And that's the thing with those things, with intention and with your goal. You can have an intention of connecting with somebody and say, you know what, actually, and I would rather focus on this instead. You can change your pursuits, but you need to have a pursuit first and foremost so that you have some kind of direction to help you along the way.
I I appreciate you, Magna. I like we're gonna have to start wrapping up this conversation, but there's something in here that everything you said had just been it just lit me up. I'm like fire, fire, fire. We're good. Like there's a lot in here, and um, I'll leave this one part, and then we'll wrap up all together. What you're bringing up for me was a time where I was a part of a group of leaders, and I remember getting very upset that they didn't understand me, and I'm like, y'all are talking like all this new agey thing. Why don't you understand me? And I got really upset, and I was like, wanted to be in that space so I can actually get upset because normally I would have like the mask on. And someone came to me afterwards and said, "Hey, can I just give you some feedback? Like we're not. It's not that we don't understand you. We just understand the words that you just said." Right. And like that was one of that person coming in and giving me that feedback. I didn't know what question to ask at that time, but I was surrounded with people who cared, who were also trying to play a bigger game, who were also like curious and like proactively gave that information out there. So allies, I want to put that in there. Like if you're not even sure, like be in the environment, see what happens. This is what I think about like the team. Like if you have a team of people who are all on the same page and saying, you're struggling with this, you may not know what question to ask, but I want to see you grow. We're all in this together and let's relate, let's be intentional. What kind of a team do we want to have? What kind of organization do we want to have? What kind of experience we want to have on a day-to-day basis? I feel like you can't lose.
If I could add one last point to
Please.
that, I would say one other thing, and it's kind of an assumption, but not really, you kind of need it to push yourself forward, is don't assume the worst of people. Even if you get miscommunication, even if you get aggression, don't assume the worst. They're not there to hurt you. Most of the time, they don't know how to help you. And there's a difference between intentional desire to hurt somebody and just ignorance of how to help someone, or a lack of skills in how to help somebody else. And so when you go into any interaction with somebody and say, though this is not how I would like to be spoken to or interact with someone else, I'm not going to assume the worst of this person. I'm going to employ curiosity and try and discover why this is the way it is, and then empower myself to learn, develop, adapt so that I can create a better outcome, a better relationship, and a better interaction.
Well, Magda, I am like, thank you for creating such a great interaction here. I'm floored with our conversation here. Outliers, there's been a lot of greatness in this conversation. Please take the time to actively create. And if you're finding like one of the actions that I would ask you to do is that if this conversation has really meant something to you, please go find one person in your world who would really benefit from listening to it. There are leaders out there who are struggling, and like this conversation and Magna's way of breaking things down to a very simple like manner to go and follow like could really support them. So think of that one person, send them the message, send them the episode, and then like, and let's keep growing here together. Magna, we're gonna wrap up here, and you know the way I like to end conversation. So I'd love to have you share an insight that you got from any part of this conversation, and if you didn't get one, that's totally cool. And then let us know how we can continue like diving deeper in a journey with you.
Thank you, Niiamah. One insight would be, just as we've been discussing the entire time, the interactions you have with different people will bring out different things in you that you can then work on, develop, and reinsert into the interaction with somebody, as well as to beyond that interaction with that person to everybody else in your life. And I would say our first interaction led to this one, and it was through that discovery of each other that we were able to get to this point, and who knows what else is going to
Amen.
come out of it. So that's one thing. Always explore connection. You never know what you're going to get from it. As for getting in touch with me, magnagopal.com. All of the information is on my website if you want to book me. If you are looking for any online courses and online materials, you can also find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Magna Gopal.
Well, Outliers. I hope you take her up on this here. Please go check her out. Like there is, I'm imagining how organizations change. Like I'm thinking about like, oh wow, what would outlier organizations look like with the but just like the bedrock of what you put in here, the foundation of what you put in today. Thank you, Magna. Thank you for living the life that you live. Thank you for continuing to bridge like who you are, and thank you for finding a way to take the time to build the skill to make sure that anyone can understand where you are, and understand how they can apply it to themselves. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Niiamah. It's been a pleasure.